All right, let's take a look at some moves. Now, let's see. In the last game, you guys have both done both at this point, right? So let's just pick one. Randy, which one do you want to do, east or western?
I'll pick west.
All right, so you are west. Chris, you'll be east. And let us see what happens. Randy, you take us away in the west.
All right, second time that we've now seen England open full-on against France with the English Channel and Wales. That's always exciting to see. It's not a terribly common opening, so it's fun when England picks a direction like that. Otherwise, fairly standard, solid openings by the rest of them. Germany does my personal favorite opening, grabbing Denmark, Kjellver, good position for Holland. Russia only throws one into Bothnia, so there's going to be negotiation over Sweden there. And France moves up into Picardy, so we'll now have the option of either covering Bray if they're worried about England, or having some say over Belgium. What you might see is France saying, all right, England, you move to the Channel and Wales, no big deal. I'll support, you can convoy to Belgium and grab that. I'll even support you in while I cover Bray and pick up Spain and just take a slightly slower start. So be interesting to see how England and France work out the consequences of England's opening.
A little surprising to see Mitch open so aggressively, right? This is a little bit out of character for him.
Agreed. Played quite a few games with Mitch, and he's a solid player, and he doesn't always pick a direction immediately. So this might be him trying out something a little bit new.
All right, Chris, tell us about the East.
Nothing stands out as hugely exciting in the East, to be honest. We've got a bounce in Galicia, which is very probably an arranged bounce there. Bounce in the Black Sea, same thing. The Russian sends the Army Moscow south, which implies that they're more interested in playing in the south than in the north, to start with at least. Turkey follows up the Army Smyrna to Constantinople. Venice holds.
It's a little surprising now, isn't it?
Yeah.
To not go to Piedmont?
I mean, it's a very common move overall, but not this tournament, apparently. Yeah. It's quite nice in that it doesn't reveal anything. Right? It's keeping your cards close to your chest. And you've still got the option of Trieste in the fall. There aren't as many dots if you're in Venice as there are if you're in Piedmont or in Tyrolia, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah, you seem like you're a fan of moving faster as Italy.
I tend to almost always want to move that unit. The fun thing is, though, that France doesn't want you to move it to Piedmont. Germany doesn't want you to move it to Tyrolia. Yeah, right. Austria often also doesn't want you to move it to Tyrolia and doesn't want you to move it to Trieste. So, you know, this can often be the okay. I don't want to annoy anyone at this point, so I'll just pop it. And I'd played this for sure.
Well, if you're Italy, there's a 98% chance that army ends up in Tyrolia in spring and fall.
I do like the move to Tyrolia. There's just so many dots next to Tyrolia, and it gives you something to talk with Germany about early on, which I think, honestly, a lot of the time you can move your pieces around to start a conversation with someone, and that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, it's the diplomatic advantage of Italy, isn't it? All right, let's move on to fall of 1901. We'll stay in the East with you, Chris Brandt.
So Italy convoys the army into Tunis. This is always there's a big debate about this. I mean, it does leave the fleet in the Ionian, but it kind of isolates that army over in Tunis. So there's pros and cons to this move. It'll be interesting to see how it works out for Owen. What else have we got? Another bounce in Galicia. The fleet goes into Romania supported. That's the I'm not sure that I can walk in unopposed. That's the guarantee to take that dot, basically. Very common as Russia again. If you know, this is the safe move.
But isn't this a really actually strong declaration of alliance intent?
Well, putting the fleet in it's interesting because the fleet is kind of what everyone wants in there. Turkey likes it because it kind of moves the fleet away from the Black Sea, and Austria quite likes it because a fleet in Romania can't hurt you as Austria.
Oh, I see why Austria likes it. I would think Turkey wouldn't like this because I would think Turkey would rather have the army here because this fleet can't really help Turkey. I mean, it's better than being in the Black Sea, but
it's the same argument, right? The reason Austria likes it is the same reason Turkey would like to see the army in there because the army can hurt Austria. Mm-hmm. But this is very, you can't tell who's allied with who at the moment. They probably don't know, I would guess.
Yeah, well, the build, Russia's build will be fun to watch here.
Yeah, I mean, it does leave Sevastopol open for a fleet build, which I've seen done. I don't particularly like it, but and Russia didn't get Sweden, which seems to be very common these days.
Yeah, let's hear about it, Randy.
Germany gets 3. Germany keeps Russia out of Sweden, which, as Chris mentioned, I've noticed that to be a very common opening these days, and there's a lot of good arguments either way. But if you're Germany and you can keep Russia from getting Sweden, and you pick up 2 others, you've gotten 3 builds here. Mitch shoots his shot with Bray, and it doesn't work. He's bounced out, and France picks up 2. So we can assume that France will be throwing a fleet down in Bray and probably an army in Paris. And Mitch might want to find a different direction to go after this.
Really unusual to see Germany get 3 builds and not be in a Western triple, isn't it?
It is, although it's not shocking in this instance, given that I'd be willing to bet diplomatically that France and England were just immediately at loggerheads and were so focused on each other, they kind of ignored what was going on with Belgium.
Nice position for Germany to be in, though, at this point. You should be able to choose your ally. All right, let's...
Mitch doing the going for Brest is interesting, because that's kind of if it works, it's absolutely brilliant and you're set for a lot of the game. But if it doesn't work, then it's kind of like, you've got nowhere and you've got nothing really. So
yeah,
it's
Randy,
a do or die type move.
So Randy, if you were Germany here, who would you rather ally with, England or France?
Given my druthers, I would keep them bouncing off of each other as long as possible. I wouldn't necessarily ally with either. But probably you want to encourage Mitch to continue fighting against France, because France just got 2 and Mitch only got 1. If you're Germany, you want to keep them, not let either one of them necessarily get any real momentum going.
All right. Well, the builds will certainly be interesting for Germany here. He'll have to either put down 2 fleets or 2 armies, or wave a build, or do 3 armies, which would be interesting.
A decision.
And we get probably one of the more ambiguous configurations here. Although I think if you're England, you would really rather have seen this army or this fleet be in Berlin rather than in Kiel.
You would, but what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, but this is a keep your options open for Germany. Like, you're not committed to going west. You can easily throw them against Russia. But yeah, it's not a I feel like I need to stay on the right side of England. I'm doing this anyway. What are you going to do about it?
Germany could easily put himself into either Skagerrak or Baltic, and Denmark grab Sweden, put an army in Ruhr, and just support himself and say, you know what, I'm gonna see what happens here and just grab my 7th dot.
Yep. All right, we will see what happens there. We do get the 2nd Southern Fleet build with Sevastopol. So it's actually, I see people do this sometimes. It's a questionable build to begin with, but then they do something like Sev to Black with support from Romania, which is the non-guaranteed way of doing it. So we'll see how that works. Yeah. Otherwise, we don't get an Austrian fleet build in 1901. A tad bit disappointing given all the other fleets on the board. Turkey and Italy do non-surprising things. All right, let's push ahead here. Randy, we'll stay with you in the West. Tell us what happens.
England does. If I'm guessing, I'm saying that England and France are saying, all right, maybe we let things get a little out of control, and maybe we should rein in Germany a little bit. They don't do anything to each other. England doesn't vacate the channel, but also doesn't try to convoy or do anything crazy, just reoccupies the North Sea. Germany, meanwhile, does more or less what I thought he might. He's put himself in a position to seize Sweden, unless England has anything to say about that, and keep Silesia empty, wisely not throwing everything against Russia in case France pulled armies back onto his borders.
But now he's got a problem, right? Let's hear about it first from the perspective of Eastern movements, and then we'll talk about what this means for the overall tactical situation. Chris, tell us about the East.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Italian army move to Tyrolia now, and the Austrian army up to Vienna to Bohemia at this point as well. It's very early to see play in the center of the board like that. And I guess that's a reaction to Germany getting 3 builds in 1901. They kind of feel like they need to influence that. The question is that coordinated with Russia moving to Silesia as well? Probably would be my guess, because you've obviously Russia's kind of committed against Turkey, which kind of makes them friends with Austria and Italy from that point of view. Yeah, it's an interesting situation. And Germany did the self bounce in Silesia, so presumably suspected that the Russian was coming for them.
It's a waste of the units, though, isn't it?
Yeah, they probably wish they'd done something different. I mean, if the Russian's coming for you, then you want to bounce it. But now they've got those other 2 enemy units down there as well. Yeah.
So is this a situation of, we hear about early leader syndrome. Usually that's something that pops up in 03. Maybe is this an instance of very early leader syndrome?
It's a known weakness for Germany. I can't count the number of times I've either seen it or played a Germany who gets 3 builds and then is immediately dogpiled by 2 or 3 of his neighbors. It's interesting because it's not usually justified. A 6 center Germany, given the location on the map, is equivalent to a 5 center of most other powers. I think that a 6 center Germany isn't even as strong as a 5 center France, for example. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I very much agree. I've seen a lot of people react very badly to a German that builds 3, but honestly, that 6 center Germany is not that strong at this point.
Yeah, and it seems like the East has reacted as if it's a Western triple, trying to get armies to the front line and uniting against Turkey right away, and that's it's clearly not what's happening. All right, well then let's have a look at the moves, and then we'll try to figure out who's looking like they're going to benefit the most from this. Let us start stay in the East with you, Chris. Yeah, this is a lot of stuff happens here. Tell us.
Yeah, wow. So the Turkey's not long for this world if this continues. Russia using those 2 fleets to full advantage, getting support into Bulgaria, which is interesting. That Austria is willing to put Russia into Bulgaria, and also the Italian convoy actually makes it into Constantinople.
Because of support from the Russian fleet,
because of support from the Black Sea. So there's a lot of 3-way negotiations going on to come up with that deal, right? Whereby Russia supports Italy in and Austria supports Russia in, and you take 2 of the Turkish dots as a result.
A convoy from Tunis to Cannes at all, let alone in fall of 1902. That's remarkable. Yeah,
Turkey's got their work cut out at this point for sure.
That's just so well done by Russia and Italy coordinating that. That's very clever, and it's not something you see very often.
It relies on Austria. I mean, like Chris said, it relies on Austria being very comfortable letting the others have the dots first. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible for Austria, although I'm a little worried about that Budapest to Vienna move. That doesn't really feel necessary to. Even if you think that Germany is a problem, you've got 1 army up there already. I would have kept the army in Budapest just to be able to influence Romania anyway.
You got to do something as Austria to keep Russia honest. I mean, you're helping them into Bulgaria, but what are you getting out of this? Bulgaria is, if you're Austria, you want to be the one in Bulgaria, not Russia. And the only way to force that to happen is to keep pressure on Russia.
As Austria, I'm always looking to own all the Balkans.
Mm-hmm. Although if Russia builds in the north here rather than in the south, then it does kind of feel like Russia is kind of spread out in a way that is not that could work to Austria's advantage.
It could, but it's a chance for Austria's part because you don't know what Russia's going to do.
It's a slower play, right? I think she's banking that she gets Bulgaria as, say, Romania gets moved into one of the Turkish dots. I'm sorry, the Russian army that is now in Bulgaria.
Yeah, I mean, you can see Constantinople moving down to Smyrna, Bulgaria moving down to Constantinople, and then Austria following up and getting the dot then.
It's nice if she, I mean, all these other units that could be attacking her are going in other places. So, all right, we'll see if it works out. Randy, tell us about what happens in the West, which also has a lot of activity.
Yeah, well, I wanted to mention this last turn, and I'm mad at myself that I didn't because I would have looked very prescient, but I wondered if England was going to talk France and supporting them into Belgium, which is exactly what happened here. So just so you all know, I did predict that mentally. That was just so we're all clear here.
Randy, we give you a lot of mental credit for it.
I appreciate that. So we see England, exactly. This is unfortunate early leader syndrome on Germany's part. England quite correctly supports Russia into Sweden in order to keep that neutral. Don't need either one of them getting it if you can avoid it. Meanwhile, picking up Belgium with French cooperation. I think this is for England and France got off on a rocky foot, and I think that they very quickly realized that if they don't make up their differences, then they're handing a lot of position over to Germany, and they have clearly made up their differences now.
Yeah, I think one move that we didn't give a whole lot of attention to last turn in the spring was this move from Portugal to north coast of Spain rather than to mid-Atlantic. This now looks like it's an uncomfortable sequestering of the fleet in a place that's not very useful. But by not going to mid-Atlantic, it really looks like France was making a good faith gesture to England to allow for this kind of strategic rearrangement. And
it's a little awkward. I mean, if I'm France, I'd rather have that in either mid-Atlantic or Spain's south coast. Yeah. And given the fall moves here, where he does move to the mid-Atlantic, I'm inclined to agree with you that was a good faith showing to England.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that there's no reason to be in the north coast of Spain, he's going to be in the mid-Atlantic because it's obviously just a much better place to be.
I probably would have put it in the south coast of Spain.
Yeah,
because I'm not worried about annoying Italy at this point because Italy's busy. They're not going to do anything about it.
All right. Well, it's delightful to see the north coast of Spain just because we don't see it that often. But all right, let's move forward. And here is what happens with builds. We have England putting down an army in London. We have Russia putting down an army in Warsaw, and Italy putting down an army in Naples. So 3 armies go on the board while 2 fleets come off the board. That's an interesting redistribution of strategic resources. I suppose that if you are England and you want to make nice with France, I mean, you've all with this army, with this fleet in mid-Atlantic, you always have to worry now about the backdoor cut here.
England had to build an army there, but I imagine France wanted him to build a fleet. But I do think
why do you think it had to be an army?
For precisely the reason you just said. If England decides to swing mid-Atlantic to the Irish, unless Mitch covers that, in which case he risks walking out of the English Channel and France walk in, a fleet in either Eddie or London can't protect Liverpool. An army in London can move to Yorkshire, or if I'm Mitch, I probably would have built the army at Eddie, so it doesn't even have to move. But an army there for England is just better.
So, but it's purely for defensive purposes. Sorry, go ahead,
It's
Chris.
the wrong place to build it, though. I think he should have built it in Edinburgh.
Correct, I agree.
Because now he's got to decide if he tries to convoy it over onto the mainland and it doesn't go, then he can't defend Liverpool. Whereas if he's in Edinburgh and he does the same thing, then he can defend Liverpool. So exactly. If you like gamble and fail, then you want to try and make it so that if you gamble and fail, you're not dead, right?
It's not actually a gamble.
I see. Yeah. And maybe the army in Edinburgh itself serves as a deterrent for even attempting the move from mid-Atlantic to Irish.
The army in London might look like more of a deterrent because it's closer to France, but it is somewhat less effective than an army in Eddie actually would have been.
Just from the layout of the board.
Exactly.
All right, let's move ahead here. Spring 1903, and we'll stay in the West with you, Randy. I should probably show you the orders.
I was going to say, I'm happy to speculate about what they're doing.
I thought Randy had this great psychic power. He's just going to tell us what
wait.
You're
supposed to let me tell you what they're going to do before they do it.
Randy, tell us how this game ends.
All right, let me see here.
Use those mental powers.
It ends at far too late an hour. That's how it ends.
Oh, yeah. All right. So we have a not moving at all. Probably the worst of all options here.
We see the unfortunate consequences of the army build in London versus Eddie. It is now unable to protect Liverpool, which France can now theoretically he could even convoy his army into Liverpool if he wanted to, which he probably does want to. So that we're seeing whether France was planning on doing this or not. They almost certainly wouldn't have done it had that been an army in Eddie versus London. Yeah. But now they've got themselves in a pretty good position against England. Meanwhile, Germany is just holding on, doesn't lose anything this turn, and is obviously delighted by that French move because maybe they're able to pick up Belgium, or at least talk France into taking Belgium, and get themselves some breathing room by pitting those two against each other again.
Do you like this move by France?
I don't dislike it. It's not a bad stab. I'm not sure it's the right time for it. I probably would have waited a little bit. I mean, you're going to get a dot off of England, but that's not a lot. And England's still in the English Channel, can still cause you some problems. And Germany is still perfectly strong. So I get the temptation by France, but I think it's probably too early to be really effective.
And Germany is all armies still at this point.
Exactly. The armies have nowhere to go but towards Russia or France.
Chris, you got a counterpoint?
I think if I was France, then I would be doing this, having let Germany convince me to do it, and my price for that would be Belgium. So if I'm doing this, it's because I'm picking up Belgium and Liverpool, because I'm saying, no, I don't really want to attack England, and Germany's going, please, you've got to attack England. Well, tell you what, you give me Belgium, and then I'll attack England.
So you would.
I think in this situation, you can pull off a negotiation like that, right?
And then the question would be, are you now, middle leader syndrome then at that point?
And let me put it this way. I really do understand why France did this, because he does not have an obvious path against Germany.
No.
I mean, Germany's 3 armies there. England tried to support him into Ruhr, but that wouldn't have worked even if France had tried to do it. So I understand why France is thinking there's a good chance that I get a dot here. Maybe that opens things up for me.
It would have worked actually if Holland had been tapped, but England was going for position here rather than. Okay, I'm sorry. We just spent...
Usually, as France, you're trying for Munich at this point, right? But you've got all these Eastern powers lined up on Munich, so you can't get Munich anyway, right? So
might as well go around the circumference.
Well, you either go against England or you go against Italy at this point, right? And Italy is kind of tempting. You could have easily moved Mid-Atlantic down to Western Med.
But then you're not even guaranteed Tunis. Whereas with these moves, it was pretty likely he's going to get the ball.
Which is why I think this is. Yeah, I think this is a good move probably from France.
Yeah, plus with England and the English Channel, that'd be a tough one to send 2 fleets down. Okay, let's talk about the East, shall we, Chris?
I've been looking at the West. So we do see Austria moving into Belgium. That looks like it's arranged, but it's not pushing.
Bulgaria, you meant, yeah.
Bulgaria, sorry, yeah.
The Belgium of the East.
The BL, something else. One of those dots with a B and an L.
It is the Belgium of the East, indeed.
It's kind of surprising that they didn't push that Russian army into Turkey. They don't seem to have tried to take the other 2 Turkish dots, which they certainly could have done at this point. They've got 3 units next to them.
Well, they tried to convoy into Smyrna here.
But I see. So they tried.
So presumably one of those Turkish dots will fall here, if not both.
I mean, this spring, so they've got 4, and with the fleet in Armenia, I guess they should be able to guarantee both of them in the fall now, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they have to.
They have to. Owen has to be the mover, which means Bulgaria has to follow it up. So
exactly,
it's not nice, but it's okay. And they tried for Munich. They can't get Munich unless something happens in the west. But then Sweden has finally become Russian. So,
all right, let's see how it works out here. And Chris, tell us about it in the west or east.
Yeah. So what we expected, they've.
Well, this is not what we expected.
Okay, they've moved the Italians. The Italians have moved the way we expected, but then Russia has not guaranteed Ankara and has instead gone for I wonder if that's a miscommunication or if that's a stab.
I mean, but if you're Russia, you both want to take Ankh and you want Bulgaria to make it into Khan here.
You would have thought so, yeah.
This is not good.
Yeah.
And I'm equally befuddled by what's going on in the West.
All right, talk us through it, because there are a lot of arrows.
England loses Liverpool to the French army, as we expected, but does get Denmark, but chooses to take Denmark with the army in London instead of the fleet in North Sea, and then covering North Sea with Norway. So it's possible England has just decided to become a Scandinavian power, but given that they're just going to stay even this turn and they have completely abandoned the homeland to a French army, this is a confusing set of moves.
Well, I mean, how much other choice did he have?
He could have taken Denmark with the North Sea. I mean, Russia was the one who
and then he would have lost
taking with the fleet, because the only other fleet next to the North Sea is Denmark, and that's the one you're kicking out.
But he would have lost Holland or Belgium if he had done this. I mean, the Bulgaria of the West.
No, he could. English Channel would have supported Belgium. North Sea take Denmark. Yeah. Norway cover the North Sea. I think that would have been pretty.
Norway covers the North Sea. Yeah, and then you move London up to York, so you can have a chance.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's look at some builds here.
Actually, the other thing that was interesting there was the Italian moves in the south. The fleet and the army both heading west.
Oh yeah. What do you make of that?
I'm not sure, but I guess that's Turkey's basically done at this point, so I need another target. So those are probably heading towards France. Although Tyrolia didn't move to Piedmont, you could have done Tyrolia to Piedmont as well.
Maybe this might actually explain what happened here. This might have been a deal to make sure that Italy got a build here. This was the only way to guarantee that Italy got a build. And Russia would have had to agree to
arrange bouncing.
Yeah, that's
cool. Yeah. Okay, let's see what Italy does with the build. We get a fleet Naples. We get a fleet Marseille, which is he probably decided he needed a fleet, and that was the only place to put it down. But it does well, and plus with Italy moving west.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right build for France in that position.
And Austria puts down an army here, which also makes sense. Though you do have to wonder what's going to happen here now that Turkey is on the way out. This is always the decision point for the East. And without a big threat in the West to force them to work together, you really have to wonder what's going to break down here. Let's see who you guys like.
The three of them have worked very well together so far. So this is one of those interesting situations where you've got three powers worked well together, and you're trying to figure out which two are working better than who's the odd one out, right?
Okay, so first of all, who would you want to be?
I'd like to be France. They've already got the army into England. They do not have a persuasive threat from the Italian. I suspect it's not very persuasive because I suspect Italy is going to be the odd one out of the East. I think Austria and Russia are going to work together there. I think France has a slightly more stable position than my second favorite power, which would probably be Austria.
Chris, what about you?
It's not an easy call, actually. This is very much almost anyone's game. Well, not quite anyone's game, but I can see play for Italy. I can see play for Austria, for Russia, for France. They've all got options. And a lot of it depends on what happens in this three-way position in the East, really. Who comes out on top there, or how things work out there.
I think of these three, I'd want to be Austria. I think just because it looks like the most fun. You're stuck in the middle of all of it. You really got to wheel and deal and keep on top of who might move against you, what the other people are talking about.
Austria would definitely be fun. I quite like the Russian with the two fleets in the south.
Yeah,
you've got potential. You build an army, you start pushing those fleets through. You get your fleets down in the Med. A Russian with fleets in the Med is usually done very well in the game, right?
It'll be. I'm really interested to see what happens in the middle of the board here with the German dots.
Yeah, Germany is far from dead.
I'm more interested to see what France does regarding choosing which one of these to work with. So Berlin is gone here. If they do it right and decide to cooperate, but France could sort of decide who gets Munich and use that as a chip to try to drive a wedge between something in the East and sort of muck things up.
That's interesting. If I'm France, I'm not letting anyone take Munich if I can avoid it.
When France first moved to Burgundy, I wondered if they would work with the Eastern powers to take Munich, and they haven't so far. So,
all right, let's see what happens then. And Randy, will stay with you. Tell us what you see.
All right. Well, Mitch does pull back to cover Eddie while also just walking to Kiel. So I think he's kind of just in swing at everything and see what sticks modes and see if he can survive it. France, meanwhile, puts himself into helps Germany into Belgium. That's an interesting one. France helps Germany take Belgium, and Germany gets Austrian help into Silesia. So a lot of change here, actually. A lot of change in dynamics.
The big action is right here. Tell us about it, Chris.
Yeah, it looks like Russia's the odd one out is the answer, basically. So Italy's committed those two southern units, the fleet pushing up into Constantinople. And Austria has committed everything except the fleet, basically, against Russia at this point. Even pushing Munich into Silesia, which the negotiations behind that must have been fascinating. I mean, it protects Berlin, and it gives them a shot at taking Warsaw in the fall. So it's a good move from that point of view, but it leaves Munich open to France. So I don't know whether I would have wanted to do that if I was Germany.
I wonder if that was an accidental support. If Germany was just going to cut Silesia and Austria figured, I can support them in and really mess things up.
Yeah, it's possible.
Berlin didn't actually write any support here. This seems like a big move by Seren in Austria.
It's a shame that it's almost a shame that Russia didn't go the other way. That was guaranteed to take Berlin. But
yeah,
well, not quite guaranteed, but more likely to take Berlin.
Well, he definitely would have gotten. Yeah, if he needed Munich to be tapped in order to guarantee it, but
moving as it is. But
So let's talk about the stab by Seren, because this is a pretty major move in terms of strategic realignment here. Clearly, she's gone for Romania. She's going to get that, and she's also used Germany as a wedge against Russia. What leaving aside the movement from Greece to the Ionian, which is really curious.
That's my favorite move, I think.
Well, what do you like the stab on Russia? First of all, let's talk about that.
I think I do. The interesting thing is Romania actually moved to Ukraine, so Russia knew this was coming. They chose to take Armenia rather than support Romania, right? Because they could have just held Romania.
Ankara,
Ankara. Sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm messing up all these sentences. Good job I'm not writing order.
Ankara is the Armenia of the main Turkey. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the Armenia with the dots.
What about Greece to Ionian? I know we got to move on, but like what? What?
I love it. I mean, who doesn't want to be in the Ionian? It's a great place to be. And you can. I suspect Italy's not mad about it, because Italy's pushing fleets west. France has got more fleets than they have. So, either Austria says, hey, would you like my fleet to help out? Or Italy says, why don't you send your fleet west as well? Either way, that's great for Austria.
I love it as Austria. You hate when you're Italy and you have to either ask that or just accept that it's happening.
Yeah.
You love it as Austria.
Well, let's see where this has three delicious options, each one in its own way, really palatable.
I don't think you use it against Italy yet. I think it's one of those units I would want it to sort of hang around there for a year or so.
Presuming this was agreed upon. I mean, going to Tyrrhenian Sea is not if you can get in there, it's not a bad thing. Okay, let's, what about the West? No, we already talked about the West here, so let's just move on here. And let's stay in the East here with you, Chris. So it looks like that was not agreed upon.
That was a surprise to Italy by the looks of it. And this is very much you need to put that back in Greece right now.
And here we see the problem, actually.
Yes, that's a direct result of that by the looks of it. In fact, all the Italian units have moved against Austria this turn. So that one you move to Ionian without the diplomatic backing behind it has caused Austria all sorts of problems.
It's collapsed the entire stab, in fact. Because now she's not getting a build. She has Italian units on her backside, and plus Italy is now appears to have made some sort of truce with France, though the one that could be quickly reversed.
Well, not necessarily. Those could be defensive moves by France.
Randy, tell us about them.
I mean, they're good moves. They are defensive, but they're also now combined with Italy pulling back. This is an opportunity for France to say, I'm just going to park these here. I'm not going to move any more towards you. You go ahead and deal with your Austria problem while I mop up England. And France is going to need some more units to mop up England, because England does manage to defend London, does not succeed in reconvoying back, and I'm not sure why. Because I'm not sure why.
Because North supported English Channel to hold. It did not support the move back.
Which
this is so. Look, if Mid Atlantic supports Irish to the English Channel, it wouldn't have worked because it was supported. Never mind. Okay.
Figured he could have walked to Paris, entertainingly enough, if that had been, but did not, obviously. So for England is now.
I bet he wishes he had now,
but has picked up Kiel. So England is still even and still has a fairly difficult position. So kudos to making this difficult for France.
And France played mostly to defend Brest, tapping both the possible supports for an attack on Brest and left Paris open, which is they picked right. It's a good move. I like it.
Okay, let's move on to builds here, because these will definitely be revealing. Let's see. Italy puts down a fleet, which I suppose because the army was already in Venice.
Is the only adjustment.
Yeah. That
Nobody
is well, because there were a bunch of pops, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then a lot of exchanges. Boy, how many?
Yeah.
A
lot of centers changed hands, but it's mostly one up, one down, right?
That's great. Okay, spring 1905.
Look at Germany, 4 dots, and like one of them's Warsaw. It doesn't own Kiel or Berlin.
Right. Only 2 of them are next to each other.
Not a strategy I would have pursued. But...
All right, tell us about it. Let's stay with the West, Randy.
Sure. England continues to make like a Tasmanian devil and just keep swinging and staying alive here.
England convoys the French army into Holland.
Convoys France successfully to Holland. And takes
off
Belgium.
The island.
So
wow.
France decided, I think correctly, that he wasn't going to make any more moves going to successfully take any more dots off of England, considering that his only 2 other fleets were busy in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, because he only had the 2 units up there, one army, one fleet, and that wasn't going to take down those English dots. So this is a good move by both of them.
This disentangles them a little bit, gives them a direction to go in, and if England is willing to just say, all right, you can hold on to Liverpool for now, then this is a good opportunity for England to get himself back in the game and be not just more relevant, but actually able to make positive moves to better his own country instead of just surviving.
I don't know, though. I don't think France is likely to get anything off of Italy, though. I mean, Italy's getting a build here, has access to all of these dots.
No, he's not. But clearly, he still doesn't trust Italy entirely. That's the move in there in Lyon. And if he's able to pick up Holland and hold it, which he just was, then maybe he can put down another fleet in Marseille or swing an army into Piedmont or something.
Yeah. In any case, he needed an ally, and England was his only choice. So that makes sense. Okay. What about the East? Chris, tell us about it.
Yeah, we've got definitely Italy and Russia are working even better now. They've obviously negotiated something in Turkey whereby they leave each other alone. The Ankara fleet heads back to Armenia, and the army in Smyrna heads to Constantinople. Black Sea supports Bulgaria. So there's a lot of cooperation between the 2 powers there. The Italian moves towards the west. I don't know, the Tyrrhenian Sea to Lyon, Naples holds. That looks a little weak to me. I think I might have put the Tyrrhenian Sea to Tunis and Naples to the Tyrrhenian.
Yeah, it's peculiar to...
Or bounce Western Med, I don't know. I probably would have wanted to put Tyrrhenian into Tunis, I think, at that point. Bring the second fleet up where it can actually do something useful.
Is that a misorder from Italy there, not successfully taking Greece? Why did Bulgaria fail to support Ionian into Greece?
Yeah, that's got to be a misorder.
Supported Greece to the Ionian.
Misorder.
That's
unfortunate.
Yeah,
but it's spring.
We've
it's
all
not
done
terrible.
That. Yeah, but Serbia has this choice, right? So he still has to.
Yeah, and I mean he's walked into Trieste and he's got Vienna in the full guarantee.
Oh, he can just tap Serbia now. Yeah. Oh, so he's got Vienna and Greece guaranteed. Oof.
Yep. He should pick up 3 Austrian dots this turn, right?
This is great.
Oh, so now he really needs to get this. He really needed to get this fleet out of there. Oh, if he can't.
Because he can't put Ionian to Tunis now. So.
He's going to have to go Tyrrhenian Sea to Tunis and then Naples to Apulia if he actually wants to put down all
to
of
guarantee the build. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brutal. That would be brutal to not be able to build. Okay, let's find out. And he does not do this correctly. Actually, it had to be Bulgaria to Greece with Khan.
Yeah.
Khan moving. Okay.
Oh, and I guess that wasn't guaranteed either because there are 2 Austrian units next to Bulgaria. So.
It still works out just fine for him. He's still putting down 2, and Austria is in a poor position now.
Yeah, although Austria picked up Munich, huh?
And Warsaw.
And Austria picked up Munich and Warsaw, yeah.
So Austria is even. No?
Austria's even.
Austria's even.
Has no home centers.
That's pretty impressive, really, to stay even on that.
All right, Randy, disentangle this for us in the West.
Oh, do I have to?
Yes, please.
Well, it looks like Germany retakes Holland because Ruhr goes to Holland with support from Kiel, which was not cut because Holland went to Kiel with support from Denmark, but Baltic supported Kiel. So Germany got Russia on board with slowing down the France-England train. So good for Germany, diplomatically speaking there. But this has worked out very well for England, who has picked up Belgium and also just walks into Ruhr. So England will be building. Hopefully, it will be an army and Eddie to pick up Liverpool.
No, I think they're even because they lost Kiel here.
Oh, you are correct. You are correct.
But they're in position to pick up a build next year.
Still, good positioning. This is a big turnaround. That last year was a big turnaround for England. Has gotten them back in the game.
At 5, at 5, he's not out of it. The board leader is the board leader's going to jump up here. The question is what.
I'm having difficulty figuring out what this new center counts are. So many centers change hands. Right?
How did Germany get to St. Petersburg? When did that even happen?
Let's go back.
He went by Warsaw, Livonia, St. Petersburg. He just walked into St. Petersburg
from Warsaw. So yeah, let's follow the. This was in Munich 4 turns ago.
and probably
excellent.
Silesia, Warsaw,
to Silesia, and then went into Warsaw.
What a sightseeing army! You love to see it.
Well, it's interesting though because now it's threatening Norway, so it's actually useful against England now. It ties up that North Sea fleet.
I want that army in Munich to get to Norway so bad.
Oh my god! And there's a fleet in Eddie. Why is the fleet still in Eddie? Oh my god!
Because North failed to get to Holland.
Okay. All right, let's poor Mitch. So all right, so for Mitch to have a shot here, obviously he needs to pick up Holland. He should be able to presumably pick up both of these.
He should get Holland and Kiel and Liverpool. He should get all 3 of those and then be very relevant.
Well, or hold on to Norway, right?
It's going to take a while to pick up Liverpool.
Yeah,
I don't think he can take Liverpool because he needs France to be working against Italy. If he's thinking about board top.
That's some way down the line. You build an army, and whoops, did I walk into Liverpool? Well, you can't do anything about it now, can you? France?
Hopefully, things shake out that you're able to do that in tandem with a stab on France. Throw an army into Picardy and Burgundy, or a fleet into English Channel, and then also Liverpool's in your pocket.
Yeah, but this is a scenario where Italy has gotten pushed back somehow, right? In order for it to be worth it.
Right.
All right. Let's see what chances are of these developing. What the chances are. So Italy drops a fleet and an army. Sensible builds, but so France can guarantee France can't guarantee Tunis. There's still a guessing game, and you'd have to risk west in order to do it. Okay, let's Russia is dropping 2 here and is so there's Sweden actually. So England has definitely shot at builds. The problem is the best builds they have after the German ones are from people that he needs to be fighting Italy.
Yeah, but you don't need to worry about Sweden. Sweden's one of those nice dots that someone else owns it, but I can pick it up whenever I need it.
Right. England's got a good path to slow, steady growth here.
Yeah. But he needs Italy to be pushed back. So, all right, let's see if any of this is possible. And spring of 1906, let's start in the West with you, Randy.
Yeah, England blows up the German army in Holland, which is a good first step. Covers Norway and moves into Norwegian, so you can cover Norway next turn and throw North Sea maybe into somewhere slightly more useful. He probably wants to get that into Helgoland or something, because if he ever wants to get Berlin, he's going to need that fleet in Baltic. Yeah. But as I said, slow, steady growth for England here. He's going to pick up probably just the 1 this turn, but it's better than nothing. Down south, France forces its way into Piedmont and is kept out of Tunis by Italy, so France and Italy are getting very locked up there.
Let's talk about this.
That's fun. That's a fun little tango they just pulled there. Where Austria, my guess is Austria is just completely ticked at Italy for completely understandable reasons.
Austria's cut a deal with Russia. If you look at Bulgaria, the Austrian, I think, supported Sevastopol to Bulgaria.
Yep.
So Austria's got to deal with Russia. Ukraine's come back to Galicia. Munich going to Bohemia means that they can pick up Vienna.
Good chance of kidding Bulgaria as well with Anki being able to tap Khan.
They're not guaranteed Vienna, but they can guarantee that they either get Romania into Budapest or take Vienna.
Yeah.
This is I love what is happening on this board right now. You have 3 powers uniting against the board leader. They can
guarantee Vienna. They can tap Trieste from Serbia.
I don't think Austria should have pulled out of Munich, though. I think there's no reason to give up a dot there unless you are very confident you're going to be getting one somewhere else to replace it. But it's not like Austria can afford to lose dots now.
But what if this army is going to Tyrolia here? What if it's agreed upon?
Better.
I would have put Tyrolia is much better than Bohemia there.
Yeah.
It's next to way more dots, if nothing else, right?
But again, why even move it? Why not just stay in Munich?
Because now she can use it to retake her home centers. Especially if she negotiated a walkthrough here. I'd love this. I'd much rather have Vienna than Munich.
And if you're France, I would rather get that army down into Tyrolia than to pick up Munich.
Hell yeah.
Plus, from a strategic point of view, it's great to negotiate a deal with France when you both have a mutual enemy in Italy, right?
Yeah. You know what? The more I think we just answered our own question why Munich went to Bohemia instead of Tyrolia, so that from Bohemia it can support the French army down into Tyrolia.
Yeah, or Piedmont does this. I think they attack Vienna, but there's still the guessing game here, Chris. Even if they guaranteed Vienna, then there's a chance they would lose.
Right. Yes.
Actually, no,
there isn't. Serbia goes to Trieste. Right. Romania goes to Bulgaria.
Yeah, and then
a supported attack on Vienna.
All right, let's see if they do it. Let's see if they do it.
Interesting to see whether France just walks out of Munich in the fall, leaves Austria owning it.
That is what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for the board uniting against Italy because this is actually what the tribute scoring system promotes. Is a scenario where a leader breaks out and the rest of the board unites against them in order to bring them back, not necessarily destroy them, but in order to bring them back to the pack so that all of them have a chance to top the board. Topping the board is very valuable. So there's a lot of incentive to keep any player from breaking out too far. And if that's what has encouraged these players to do it, then they have played the system extremely well. All right. Look, Seren does it exactly right. Well done, Seren. Chris, tell us about all of the East here.
Yeah, it didn't go well for Italy, did it? They lose Vienna. They also lose Bulgaria to the Russian army, and that fleet was that was a forced disband as well. They didn't even get to retreat it to the Aegean. That was probably a mistake to try and move Ionian into the Aegean. They should have seen that they weren't going to hold Bulgaria. And you don't want to lose that fleet at this point.
Especially since they lost Tunis unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So Italy goes down 3 here, Vienna and Bulgaria. And
Italy should have covered Tunis, I think.
Yeah.
And now they're going to lose Constantinople as well because the Russians got 3 next to it.
So Russia picked up a build. Austria. So Austria did not.
Austria did lose Munich, right. Yeah.
But at least they're more consolidated now.
And they picked up Vienna, and that's a better position for them.
Yeah. Now they'll be able to get
Trieste. I bet their deal with Russia is you take Khan and Smee, and I'll get Bulgaria.
Yeah. And, I would be very surprised if that wasn't the case. Yeah.
And Austria ends up with all the Balkans, which is what Chris wanted back in 1918.
You still need Trieste as well, but Trieste should be doable from this position as well.
Yes, it's technically not a Balkan, so.
No, but you want all of your home and the Balkans.
You have so many requirements, Chris. Come on.
Let's take a moment to applaud Mitch McConeghey for picking up 2 builds here.
Very well done. Talks France into tapping Berlin so we can grab Kiel. He now has Kiel and Holland and has got himself a much better position. He may not be. I
think he has just put himself in the board top.
And he's got Sweden in his pocket that he can pick up any time, which is what you really want in tribute, right? You want
Liverpool.
You can have any time, but it doesn't count on your score. So.
England will be able to pick up Liverpool whenever he wants as well. So he's got, between Sweden, Berlin, and Liverpool, England has 3 dots in his pocket.
Yeah, and so all right, so he's not in the board top yet. France picked up 2. I didn't realize France picked up 2. Oh, they picked up Munich and Tunis. Okay, so France is building 2. England is building 2. So suddenly you've got now dynamic tension between England and France, and which might take the foot off of Italy.
Yes, Italy's down to 6 now, so they're not looking nearly as attractive to waste all those French units down there, right?
No, I hope that Mitch builds Fleet London Army Eddie. I think that's necessary at this point.
And if you're France, Fleet Brest, Army, either Marseille or Paris, kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
probably probably Marseille, right? To give yourself the option of, or to make it look like you might
Yeah,
be.
depending on what Italy disbands, maybe you have an opportunity.
All right.
But I got to imagine Italy will disband Khan and Aegean.
And Russia is putting down fleet Sevastopol, right? I mean, obviously.
Definitely. I hope.
All right. We've got, Evan pulling the army, the itinerant army. That's a little disappointing. But now we get to see England and France, or England and Russia building it out.
Oh, England gets lucky with this build.
I probably would have kept St. Petersburg and pulled Ruhr, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Because St. Petersburg, you can hold St. Petersburg for a long time because neither side wants the other side to be there. So if you're the neutral person who no one cares, it's just...
Although counter argument here, now Germany can try to make a deal with England. Germany can take Munich here, work out a deal with England here. If England goes and takes dots off of France, gets Sweden and Liverpool, he's going to be tough to beat for the board top.
And that would have been great, but Mitch built wrong to do it. He should have built Fleet London on the Eddy, and then, yes, this would have been a very good opportunity to stab France.
Well, but does it really matter here? He can move to York or Wales. North can go to the English Channel. I mean, what else does he really need North for?
Yeah, it's not terrible.
This gives him good cover, I think. Better cover anyway.
It's possible, but given France's builds, it looks like it was agreed to.
Okay.
But that's great, though. If you're England and you can get France to agree to your builds, but you've still got the option of stabbing him, then what's not to lose? What's wrong with that?
It's perfect, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's got English Channel guaranteed. He can take Liverpool if he wants. He can battle Sweden, but he can bounce Russia out of St. Petersburg. Although maybe he should be wanting to work with Russia. I don't know.
Yeah, you can probably make his pitch to Russia probably you pick up St. Pete and let me take Sweden.
You still bounce, I think, in the spring though, so you don't have to worry about covering Norway. Yeah,
right, sure.
No, I think you just dedicate a fleet to bouncing St. Petersburg. If Russia really wants it, they'll have to put two in it, two on it, and that'll never happen. So.
Yeah, the question is, so this is where there's really interesting, I think, sort of global strategic thinking that has to happen. You have to be thinking about not only where your dots are going to come from, but how you're going to prevent people on the other side of the board from getting dots to pass you. So Mitch should be thinking about how Russia can be useful to him, not simply as a honeypot for dots, but as someone who can help him interfere with somebody else. Maybe Seren, who suddenly, his position is much better now than it used to be. How would you guys try to attack this? If for you the board top was paramount, pick a power that you like and tell me what your global strategy would be.
I still like England's position a lot. So my strategy is get Germany on board with harassing France. My strategy is one of two. Either get Germany on board with harassing France and just move on France right now and hope that Italy keeps him tied up in the south so he can't swing all those fleets towards you, because France does have better position fleets than England does. Or, and this is probably the strategy I would actually employ, just grab the easy dots. Just get a fleet into the Baltic, grab Berlin, take Sweden, eventually get St. Petersburg, and then you've locked yourself, and then you can get Liverpool whenever you want. You've locked yourself into, what is that, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10 dots there. And that's
not
9 or 10 is
France,
pretty good for a pretty good chance of getting to board top, or if something breaks your way, you get even more.
Okay. Chris, what would be your strategy?
Yeah, I do like the I would like to disagree, but I will disagree on a detail. I think I would go for the French dots before the rest of the North. I would feel that I can pick up Sweden, St. Petersburg, Berlin later. I would rather take the French dots now and throw lots of units against France. And I mean, France is the board topper at this point, right?
Yeah.
So you can even get the rest of the board to help you out with that, because they should be supporting you while you do that, right?
They should, but if I'm Italy, I'm not gonna. I want England to pull France off of me so I can go deal with the Austrian who I let crawl back out of the bag.
But that's even better if you're England, because then it's less likely that Italy or Austria will be able to emerge as a threat to you as the
if Italy isn't taking the French dots, then that means they're all there for you as England, right?
But I don't think England holds the upper hand here. I think France has too many fleets that can easily pull back, and with 2 armies there to protect Bray, I don't actually think England gets anything other than Liverpool and then stalls out.
All right, I'm with Chris. I would move on England. I would take England here. I would move on France. I would make a deal with Germany for Germany's survival. Germany's not going to top the board, but maybe they're happy to survive on 2, which also benefits me as the board topper in tribute.
And I'd try and push those 2 into France.
Yep.
Oh, definitely. You do that regardless of what dots you're trying to pick up.
All right, we've luxuriated on a mid-game year. Let's move forward and see what happens. We had already seen builds, yeah. So, all right, let's start in the West. Mitch does not take Chris and my advice. Instead, he tries to settle the North. So, is there anything more to say in the West?
No, that pretty much covers it. I suspect the Sweden St. Pete was. It might have been arranged. That might have been Mitch telling Russia, look, I'm going to take Sweden, but I won't bounce you out of St. Pete, knowing that he can just get St. Pete later whenever he wants anyway. Otherwise, he made nice with France, arranged bounce in Belgium, and France tried to help him into Berlin, which was unsuccessful, but obviously nice to see from England. You're keeping everyone friendly. And he, again, if I'm England, I leave that army in London or move it to Yorkshire so that next turn he can either convoy somewhere, or I can just grab Liverpool if I decide I need the extra unit.
If you're going to do this, I think you go to Barents here in convoy.
Denmark can walk to Sweden.
Sweden's not the important dot. St. Petersburg is going to be the hard one. Sweden, you can pick up any time. Don't waste your units picking up dots that you don't need, unless you really need the build. If you really need the build, sure, pick up Sweden.
Hopefully what you see this turn is Norway drops into the Baltic so that he can guarantee himself Berlin next turn while Norway picks up Sweden.
Yeah.
But either way, I still would have preferred to leave that army on the island.
It's just a disappointing slowdown of tempo, because the army in Norwegian's not really needed. You can move this you can move this to Clyde, or Norwegian's okay. You can still shift it over to North Carolina. I really wanted to move on France. Okay, all right. What about the East, Chris? What happens over there?
Yeah, so Russia is concentrating on picking out those Turkish dots. Warsaw to Livonia is interesting. Yeah. Why is Austria heading up there? I guess that's part of a deal with Russia to help them take St. Petersburg.
Or it might be a deal with England to help England take St. Petersburg.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't see. My feeling is that Austria and England probably aren't talking much at this point, whereas Austria and Russia definitely are.
Yeah, I think Austria and Russia are all in with each other at this point.
Yeah,
which makes sense. I mean, they're both at 6. They're both behind the other 2 on the opposite side of the board. So,
and Italy plays a very lots of supports, very little moving. But you're still not going to hold Trieste. You're going to lose Trieste. You're going to lose Constantinople. You can hold Smyrna this year, but
that's about it, though.
They're just being ground down, basically.
It's
the Ionian.
The problem for Austria and Russia here is that they need France to be pushed back, and the only one who is interested in doing that right now is Italy, and Italy is the one that they're attacking. Maybe the only one that they can attack, but I think a stronger global strategy would be to find a different way to push back France, or to make a deal with Italy and do something else, because neither of them are on a path to topping the board at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there was play to do what they did earlier in the game and send units up into Tyrolia, Bohemia, and take Munich off of France, things like that.
Yep. All right, well, let's keep going here. We'll stay in the East with you, Chris. Tell us about Fall of 1907.
So just one more thought on that. It can be very difficult, though, once you start on a path of, we need to get revenge against Italy, we need to kick them out. It can be very difficult to then figure out, well, how do we, even to think of the idea, hang on a moment, maybe we're better with Italy alive and fighting off France and using those units on our side rather than just taking the dots.
That's a great point, especially at 15-minute turns, and there's a lot of stuff to think about here.
So yeah, let's see. Austria takes Trieste. And Italy decides that it's more important to shift the fleet back rather than covering Smyrna. So Russia picks up both Con and Smyrna, which is nice.
Going to be building 3, but only has 2 home centers.
Lost Sweden. So Building
no,
2.
you're right.
Lost Sweden, but picked up St. Petersburg. Yeah, so building 2 in the 2 home centers that they have. So
Good year for Russia.
Yeah,
interesting.
Russia jumps into a tie for the board top, actually.
Yeah,
with only 2 home centers. Well, no, 3 with St. Peter.
And not a bad position. Now that when you build a couple of armies in Moscow and Sevastopol, the position is not bad at all, right? Because you can pick up Warsaw anytime. You probably can't get up anything in the north, but there's a lot of Austrian dots there, especially if Austria is pushing against Italy, right?
Yeah.
It's got the potential for sure.
England just
picks up 2
to move into the board top alone.
Apparently talked Germany into just walking out of his last stop there.
Yeah. Germany didn't even try to hold Berlin, right?
He literally walked out to let England walk in.
Yeah, he just had enough. Mitch, miraculously, this is a stunning turn of events. He was stuck at 4 for a very long time, managed to stay in England, lost a home center, managed to stay in the English Channel for a long time, and is now
fought off an FGR, right? He had all for France, Germany, and Russia attacking him at one point, and he fought all 3 of them off, right?
This was excellent. I mean, I assume the diplomacy was good too, but this was excellent tactical play by England, even with a French army in the homeland, keeping it tight, keeping it difficult for France to get anywhere until France decides to go somewhere else, and then capitalizing on the opportunity. So major kudos to Mitch.
Well done, Mitch. Really good defense. And we criticized him a little bit for the slowdown up here, but he managed to, he made up for the tactical deficiency up here with a diplomatic coup in getting Berlin here. All right, so now.
And you can play that if you're England at this point, you can play this as just a race with France, right? Because you've got the dots that you can pick up. You can pick up St. Petersburg at least. You're always going to be threatening Munich probably. So you can sort of say, and whereas France has not been able to take many of the Italian dots, maybe it's a little easier once Italy starts disbanding, but
France needs help from Austria in order to do it. So we get another army in London, but again, right, a cryptic army. This could be used for a lot. Another fleet up here. We get 2 armies for resurgent Russia, who must be feeling some oats at this point.
Has Mitch built anything other than Army London?
I disagreed with Mitch's builds every single year, but it keeps working for him. It's very frustrating.
Well, the question is, right, does he stab France now? Right, like it's kind of like, if not now, never. There's a chance that France may get a build. France may turn on him, thinking that he's just has to, because why wouldn't England stab me now?
That's what I'm concerned if I'm England, that Belgium and Kiel are pretty vulnerable, and he's got so many units committed. He even moved to Bothnia instead of Baltic, which I think would have been the correct move. So I think he's still walking a real tightrope here with France. And
he can't even take St. Petersburg now until he gets a fleet up in Barents, which he could do in one turn. But
do you want to commit another unit over there?
I know, right? That would be 5 units up in here. All right, let's see what happens here. All right, spring 1908. So Turkey dropped a bunch of units, potentially vulnerable here, but there's stuff that they can do.
Turkey's not got any units to drop.
I see Turkey.
Italy is back to his alternative starting position, Fleet Rome.
Yeah.
All right, tell us about the Purple Turkey, Chris Brand.
Yeah, we get the Russian fleets into the Med at last. I've been wanting to see this since they first built that second fleet. Right?
It's unusual to see that work out so well for Russia. That second fleet usually hamstrings them too much, but it's worked out here.
So Russia gives up St. Petersburg, basically, which is, I guess if the Austrian wasn't going to help you anyway, which was possible, we can't really tell whether that Livonia decided, well, it's more important to fend off Prussia, or whether it was like not willing to help with St. Petersburg. But yeah, just giving up St. Petersburg altogether, which is it's sort of reasonable because England seems pretty dedicated to taking it, so they're going to get it sooner or later.
Yeah, although they didn't do it in the way that was needed to guarantee it. But
the unfortunate thing from Russia's point of view is there's 2 English armies up there now.
So suddenly now we're looking at a sort of movement to a stalemate line. A little bit surprising.
Certainly those 3 Austrian moves: Prussia, Silesia, Bohemia,
Yeah.
And Trieste, I think. Yes, Tyrolia rather. Trieste, Tyrolia.
Trieste tried
Tyrolia.
to, supported by
Yeah.
Venice as well, but bounced with Munich.
Yeah.
And England removes any chance of an effective stab against France, apparently deciding more important to get to the stalemate line, get St. And to be fair, in England's defense, if he gets St. Petersburg, he goes to 10 knots, and there's a stalemate line, he's pretty much a lock for the board top.
But why do you put that London army into Denmark?
No, I agree. I don't think that was necessary.
You don't need it there.
You put it in Holland.
Put it into Belgium.
Or build it in Eddie and then take Liverpool.
Right.
I'm not sure. Well, we'll see. I'm not sure why. If France isn't going to stab you, you don't need to stab him, right? If France is content to let you have the board top, then you don't need to stab. And it looks like France is.
I think this game is basically over.
Let's see what happens right here. That's the only spot of interest, and it's not interesting at all. Okay. Oh, this is wrapping up. We see France supports Austria into Italy.
Yeah.
That's the only thing of interest here.
That's interesting.
And we get England getting another army in here. Russia is able to hold on to Warsaw, but otherwise this game just feels like it's moving towards a conclusion.
The Russian gets a fleet into the Ionian.
Yeah, but again,
I'm a big fan of that.
It's
a little too late to make a huge difference.
It's not going to do them any good, but I like it anyway.
Still has a juicy stab against Austria if you wanted to take it, but for obvious reasons he doesn't.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you work out a deal with France so that France and England can fight, then you have a shot at a board top. But
the ambitious move for Russia would have been force Greece, walk into Romania, like that would. And I in this scoring system, you probably take that.
I don't know. I quite like this because you've still got those options, right? You can now take Romania from Sevastopol, you can still force Greece, and you can take Naples.
But will he do it? I don't think he's going to do it.
Army Eddie, there it is.
Wait, did he built that, right, and then moved it to north. Okay. All right, so Russia passes up the opportunity.
Russia, what are you doing? Why are you moving Sevastopol to Armenia?
That seems unnecessary.
So there's been whoa!
But
so
Russia takes Naples, and England loses Berlin but takes Liverpool.
And
yeah, I mean Russia and France,
Belgium.
Russia and France came up with a deal to split the Italian dots between them, which is kind of what I wondered when that army went over there.
So
Austria picks up 2 German centers.
England's going to lose the board top here, and I think it's because they committed too many things to the north. They don't all those units. So you see Fleet, Norway, Barents, Bothnia, St. Petersburg, Livonia. They're doing nothing to advance England's cause.
Yeah, this is so Austria pulls into a tied board top here, and I believe this is how the game ends. And oh wow. All right, first of all, well done to Seren to somehow manufacture
that came out of nowhere as well.
Mitch and Seren both looked as good as dead and clawed their way back to share a board top. That very impressive comebacks by both of them.
Seren, I felt like was deader, to be honest.
I agree.
But Mitch, it's unfortunately tempered by a clearly missed opportunity. Chris and I are in agreement on this, that had she stabbed France, Randy, I think you're in agreement on this. You were just suggesting doing it a year later than Chris and I were.
Right.
Is that right?
I thought he should have picked up Sweden, St. Petersburg, and then immediately stabbed for France. I thought that, but either way.
The problem I have with this is that he devoted an awful lot of units to taking Sweden, which he could take with 1 unit anytime, and St. Petersburg, which is 1 dot. And he had like 4 units up there, and
somewhat inefficient use.
All right. All right. So what about Russia and France? Should either one of them have topped this board?
No. I mean, France theoretically could still pick up a dot or 2, but probably Austria will stay ahead of them. I think this is
Well, at this point it's Austria's game to lose, right?
Right.
England, France fighting. So if this goes, I mean, Austria probably shouldn't have taken this draw. But who knows? Who knows exactly?
Yeah, who knows though? Because Venice is not secure. She can walk to Bulgaria, but it's a guess for anything beyond that. Russia still has 3 armies there. I'm not surprised the board ended at this point.
Yeah. It's just disappointing to me. There was so much potential for a bigger board top here.
Yeah, end of the day, huge kudos to Mitch for how we played, but I do think he gave away this board top. I think he could have locked it down.
I am like equally parts disappointed and impressed. Like it's this is an awesome game because there's so much good that they did, and there's enough missed opportunity to still leave me unsatisfied with it.
It was a great game to watch because there was a lot of changing of strategies and different alliances and all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun. And I think to answer your question about, I think all the players could play on at this point, but they've all got upside and downside, right? So it's a question of do you take what you can see now, or do you play for the potential upside but also the potential downside?
Yeah,
so
and
I
after
can
playing for
everyone's incentive to take a draw at this point.
I can absolutely see if this was an actual face-to-face game at a tournament, players are all around the board. I could see this game going on for another several hours. Yeah. But the fact that it is virtual, it is real hard to play hour after hour after hour staring at a screen and in the same position. I'm not surprised that they agreed to the draw here.
Yeah. All right, let's put this game in the books and move on to game number 5.